Welcome to part 3 of the Beginner's Guide for Proffie. If you haven't watched part 1 or part 2, I highly recommend that you do, because that will take you through each step and it's going to take you to the point in time where we are right now. So in part 1, we learned about what software you need, downloading it, installing it, configuring it. In part 2, we had a look at the configuration file, how it's structured, how to make changes. And then we uploaded the new Proffie OS 7.14 to the Kylo SE lightsaber, and we had those changes put in. But the button file that TXQ uses, it doesn't work very well at all with the OS 7.14. And I left it where it's kind of halfway in between. Today we're going to be installing the Fett263 button file, adding some new lines of code to the configuration file, which is going to unlock some really cool features that are part of that Fett263 button prop. So the first thing we need to do is we need to open up the original Kylo SE.h file that we've been working on, and then we're going to look at a new file that I've created, and I'll show you what changes I made, and then you can follow along and do the same changes on your configuration. We'll start by going into the Proffie OS 7.14 folder, opening that folder, going into the config folder, and there we have that Kylo SE.h file, and we're going to open that up. So the parts that we're going to be changing are the defines that have to do with the SA22C. So you can see that there, the next line, and all of these here. And then, of course, this is important too, which is the config prop, the button. So this is what it's currently using, and we're going to be changing that. I have a new Kylo SE file, which I've created, which I'm going to open up. And I'll put it on the left and have the other one on the right. So you can see that the new configuration has a whole bunch of new defines. And then if you look here at the prop, it's now pointing to the Saber Fett263 buttons file rather than the other one. If you want to see what is in that button file, because you can look, open up your Proffie OS folder. And if you scroll down, you'll see the props folder. You can open that, and you can have a look at Saber Fett263 buttons. So the top section here is all comment, just for you reading it and learning about it. This is another way to do comments, is you'll see a / and an asterisk, and then you can do paragraphs. So we'll keep going down and have a look. But yeah, there's new effects, so battery level effect, volume level, quotes, all these battle mode, interactive preons. There's a lot of neat stuff that's in here. Mini games, which I've never really got into. And as we go down, you'll see here that we have the instructions for a 2 or 3 button saber. So how to ignite it, how to use gesture, all of that. And you can go and see it all. If we keep going through this, we'll get to the 1-button controls. So this is a 1-button saber. So I would look in here if I want to know how to, for instance, change color, or check the battery, or how do I do tip drag, things like that. And there's quite a bit to learn and read about. And then as we go down, you're going to see a section called optional defines. And you will see some of these optional defines in the configuration file. If you want to read them, go ahead. You can learn about every single optional define and what they do. But I'm not going to go through all of this because I don't want to be too long. So we'll just keep going down here. And yeah, there's quite a bit. So here we go. This is the end of that huge comment section where it described how the saber works and all the optional defines you can do. The rest of that is the code, and you don't touch it for sure, because you can screw something up big time. All right, I'm going to close the file here and go back to this screen. I'm going to make this a little larger. So first thing is, let's get rid of the old defines. And I'm going to make this really simple. Delete that and copy this into here. And we still have to change the location of the buttons. So we're going to change this. We're going to call that Fett263 underscore buttons .h. I can verify that that's spelled right just by looking at the file. So saber underscore, yes. So it matches, and that's important because if you misspell it or if you do something, it's not going to define the file. It'll give you that error that we had the last time, cannot find file or directory. All right, so now let's have a look at what these new defines do. There is an extra color buffer define. I didn't look too closely into what that does, but it was recommended for Proffie OS 7, so I put it in there. Clash threshold underscore G is how much force is required to have the saber detect a clash, like a flash on clash or a stab, anytime you're putting impact on the blade. If you're finding that you're not able to get the flash on clash to respond, lower the number. If you're finding that just spinning the saber around and you're getting clashes all the time, you would raise that number. It's going to depend on your saber and the design of it. With the Kylo SE, I found that 2 seems to be the sweet spot. And you can play with that number until you find it just right. You have motion timeout, idle off timeouts. This is just to put the saber back into a standby mode. And then disable basic parser styles. Again, Fett263 recommends enabling that to free up some memory because you don't need it. We don't need diagnostic commands unless you're doing diagnostics. Again, beginners, don't worry about it. Enable all edit options. So what's really cool with the Fett263 prop is the ability to make changes to your saber on the fly. So you don't have to be going back into this config file to change, for instance, the clash threshold. You can do it right on the saber. You can enable or disable the gesture controls. You can change color. You can copy your presets. You can choose your preons and your blade styles. So it makes it really easy. And I will show you all of that, the edit mode options and how the edit menu works will be in a separate video because it's a lot to cover and I want to focus just on making changes right now to the config file and getting this uploaded. Color change direct, again, not going to worry about it. Repeat random. When you go into a sound font, it plays a file like General Kenobi or Hello There. And it can use different files for that sound font. So when you switch to Obi-Wan, it would play either of those two, right? If we had 2 files, or you could have 3 or 4 or 5. No repeat random means that it's not going to keep playing the same intro font file over and over. It'll try to select a different one just to give it variation. And obviously, if you only had one font file, so for instance, if it just said, General Kenobi and you had no other file, every time you go into Obi-Wan Kenobi, it would just obviously play that file to let you know that's Obi-Wan Kenobi's sound font. Edit mode menu, again, we're going to look at that afterwards. Say colorless, so it'll speak using that voice pack that we downloaded, and it'll tell you the color. Say battery percentage. So this is going to tell me the battery percentage, 90% battery or 65% battery, whatever. Clash detection levels for battle mode. And battle mode is something I'll explain to you after, and I'll demonstrate it for you. It's basically a way to do lockup, tip drag, stab, melt without holding the button or using the button at all. And that's what battle mode is. It's cool. These next defines have to do with gesture control. So swing on and swing on speed. So by defining swing on, I can swing the saber and turn it on. By defining the swing on speed, I can tell it, well, how fast or how much force do I need to do to turn the saber on. And again, if you're finding that you're spinning the saber, it's not turning on, you can reduce the value. Or if it's turning on too easily, increase it. Then you have twist on, so twisting your wrist, thrust on, twist off, and force push. So those are the changes that I like, that I personally enjoy. But you can go through that Fett263 buttons.h file, and you can read about the different defines and play with it and see what you like. But for beginners, and I consider myself a beginner still, I like it just the way it is. The next thing we need to do is copy the contents of that voice pack onto the micro SD card. So I'm going to plug in my USB cable, which is attached to my Saber, directly to the Proffie board, not to the USB port to charge it. I'm going to go back to my downloads, where I still have the voice pack English zip file. I'm going to extract the files right there. Open up that folder, and you'll see a folder called Common. I want to copy this Common folder, and we're going to put that right into the root of the USB drive. So make sure you don't put it into one of the sound font folders, or else it's not going to work. And we'll paste that. The other thing that we want to put inside the Common folder is the tracks folder. The reason for that is because the Fett263 button prop has a track player, and those tracks need to be in the Common folder. So this way you can have a different song or music piece playing for each sound font. Because right now it only points to one file. So example, animation will only play the Battle of Heroes. But having a track player, you can go through different songs and select which one. So we're going to take the tracks folder and we're going to drag it and move it to Common, like so. And one final thing that we need to do is we need to tell the presets that there are now files in the Common folder that are going to be used for voice, so that when you check battery level or you change color, you'll hear them. So what you need to do is you need to add a line right in here. So right here we're going to be editing this. So after the sound font name, so animation, add a semicolon and Common. For the track location, because we moved it, we have to update this as well. So it should look like that. So it's going to look in the Common folder, then the tracks folder, inside Common, and then the file. This needs to be done to all the sound fonts that are installed, or all the presets that are installed in the config file here. So you could do it manually if you want, or you could just download this configuration file from the Google Drive, link in the description, and it'll already be updated for you with all the changes at the top, as well as all the changes for the presets. Another thing I'm going to change, I'm just going to skip the presets for now. I want to go back to the bottom here. So last time I had you set the blade length to 116 for a 32-inch blade. Because we have edit mode enabled, we can switch this back. I'm going to put it to 132. We can switch it back for a 36-inch blade, and then using the edit mode right on the saber, we can switch the blade length on the fly, which I love because sometimes I'm in a 36-inch mood or 32, or maybe if you have a 28-inch blade or something really short, easily change the length of the blade without having to go and do all this changing, uploading. You know, it's so much easier. I've changed all of the presets now, so they all have that semicolon common after the name of the sound font, which is also the folder, and then as well the track. So it starts with common, and I did every single one. I'm going to save this file, close it, go back up a level to Proffie OS, and we'll open up the Proffie OS Arduino file. So it still has that Kylo SE config as a define, and we're going to verify the file first. Perfect. I'm using 95% of the built-in memory on the Proffie board. No errors. Let's make sure the Proffie board is selected here. So it's COM5, and click Get Board Info. Make sure it talks, and then I'm going to click Upload. Hopefully it happens on the first time. Excellent. The Proffie board has now been updated with the Fett263 button prop, so it's going to be a completely new experience using the button and all the features on there. I'm going to disconnect it from the PC. I'm going to put my grip back on the hilt, and then I'm going to show you how the button works, gesture controls, and things like that. We'll start by looking at the standby features. To ignite the saber, you're going to tap the button. You can twist your wrist. I can stab. I can spin. If I double tap the button, that's going to open up the track player. And as I rotate, it'll go through the songs. And I can go backwards by rotating the other way. The volume is really good at 2000. Perfect. If I want to select this track, I just tap the button. Okay. Now, the other thing is I can go back to track player. If I want to loop this song over and over, I hold the button down and I rotate the handle this way. And you heard it say loop. You might not have heard it because of the music, but it does say loop. So it'll loop that one file over and over. If I hold the button and rotate in this direction, you heard rotate. So rotate means it'll go from the one song to the next, to the next, to the next. And one more time. If I hold the button down, it says random. Now it'll just randomly shuffle your songs. So that's kind of cool. If I double tap the button and hold it down on the second tap, so 1, 2, hold it,
Edit mode.
It'll say edit mode. And I'm not going to get into edit mode in this video. I'll wait for another video because there's a lot to go through with edit. Edit mode can be done right on the saber itself. We can also use the web USB function and hook it up to a computer, and you can access it through a web page, which is cool. So I'm just going to exit edit mode.
Exit.
Okay. If I triple tap the button, it'll play one of the force effects. Or if you have quote effects, you can have quote files, it'll do that as well. If I triple tap and then hold it on the third tap, 1, 2, 3, let go.
Battery level 60%.
So that's how you check your battery. To adjust volume, hold down the button, tap the hilt or the blade.
Volume menu.
And then
Maximum volume.
rotate the handle.
Minimum volume. Minimum volume. Maximum volume. Maximum volume.
Tap the button to exit.
Exiting volume menu.
If I want to have the saber muted when I ignite it, I click twice and hold it for the second click. 1, 2, let go. And then it's muted. If I hold the button down for 2 seconds, 1, 2,
Enjoy plasma.
that'll go to the next sound font. And if I have the blade pointing downward and do the exact same thing, it'll go to the previous sound font. If I hold the button down,
Select preset.
this will let you rotate the hilt.
Smooth Jedi.
Luke Skywalker. Luke Skywalker.
And spinning it in one direction
Smooth Jedi.
will go through the list one direction, and then of course the other
Luke
direction.
Skywalker.
If I want to get faster through the list,
Smooth fuzz.
if I hold the button down and twist the wrist,
Teensy.
Cal Kestis.
that'll skip 5 tracks at a time. Now it's going to be a little trickier once your finger is underneath,
Anakin.
but it's just as fast to do it this way.
I have something to say.
Yoko to Banta Putu.
And then I can tap the button to select that sound font. If I hold the button down, it'll select it and ignite it. So while the saber's on, blaster blocks, just tap the button. For lockup, you hold the button down, tap the blade. Letting go stops it. Same thing with tip drag, you hold the button, tap it on the floor, and for melt, hold the button and stab it against something. If I double click the button and hold it, that's your force lightning repel. And then let go. If I triple click and hold the button, plays a sound effect, and now we're in battle mode. So with battle mode, I can activate my lockup without touching the button, and then when I move it, it stops. Same thing with tip drag and melt. There's the melt. And then automatically stops. And then while in battle mode, if I use blaster block and I swing the saber right after, it'll do multi-block mode. And then I can hold the button, swing it, and it stops. To change color, tap the button 4 times. You'll hear a tone, and I can rotate the handle to change colors. Now this is going to vary depending on how the sound font is set up. So some sound fonts, you can have it where it's stepping color, and this one's set to infinite. Once I find the color I want, I tap the button, makes a tone, locks it in. Very cool stuff once you get it all working and programmed. That'll do it for part 3 of the Beginner's Guide for Proffie. In part 4, we're going to be taking a look at edit mode, how it works on the saber, as well as using edit mode through the web USB interface and the web page. We'll add new sound fonts and new blade styles, and then we're going to be pretty much done. If you do have any questions, drop them in the comments section. I'll answer you as quickly as I can. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you soon.